here. Look at these beautiful fabrics. Oh my goodness, I have a whole stack of them. And they're 10 inches square, and I'm going to show you exactly how to make a fantastic quilt. Check this out. This is where we start, and let me show you where we finish. You gotta love a scrappy quilt filled with lots of color and patterns. They're absolutely my favorite because I love mixing lots of fabrics. Now, this one I did a couple weeks ago. I'm into my Christmas quilting, and you can see here's the block right here. This is a 12-inch block, and it starts with a 6.5-inch center, and then we sort of do the courtyard step log cabin, piecing it like this. And then where I didn't have enough pieces to make my long strips, I just scrapped those strips together and created some really fun mixes of color throughout the quilt. It's a small little lap quilt, and I think it came out great. There is a video for this. Actually, I'll link these up above if you're interested in how these are made. Now, this is the one I made last week. This one is the slice twice and sew. And it's again, another easy one. Now check out this block right here. And I'm sure you've seen one similar, oops, got a little bit of thread in there, where you cut your layer cake in half once, re-sew them all back together, sew it again, slice it again, and then sew it back together. And you get these wonderful sort of offset blocks. And these finish at 9 inches. And they look wonderful, and there's lots of color and mix and patterns, and it just is intriguing, and it's a fun quilt to look at. But I want to do more than this on the next one. I want it to be a more structured block. This, you look at it, and unless you know what you're looking for, you don't really see a block laid out in here. And for a while, oh my goodness, this spring and summer, I was making lots of potato chip blocks. And you know, the potato chip block is basically a variation of the courtyard steps log cabin. I can't even say it. And I like that look. And I thought, all right, I'm going to do something like that with log cabin. Now, this isn't anything, amazingly new by any means. But I think a fun way to do it is to mix it up more. And that's something that I haven't seen. So let's go ahead and take a look at some ideas. I'm sure you'll remember this stack of layer cakes. These are the layer cakes I cut from my own fabrics and from the stash fabrics and yardage that I had on hand. And this is the one I used in that previous quilt. Well, aren't I lucky to have my new Christmas bundle come in from the Fat Quarter Shop. So we are going to open this and take a look and see what beautiful Christmas fabrics. Yes, of course, they're going to match. Yes. Oh, this is exciting. I don't want to say match, but blend well. So here we have December 24, and it always gives you the specific colors so you can, if you love one in particular and say, oh, I want to get that or that, then you can order it by the yard. Now, we have some great colors. Let's see just what it is here. Look at that. Aren't those pretty? So there's a really nice group of colors, and I'm probably going to stay away from the blue, but I think everything else is going to work great. Ooh, there's some fun colors. The purple kind of takes me with the blue. I may stay away from that just because that color's not in here, and I don't know that I want to bring it in. I have some other ideas for that. This is pretty. I like that one. And so we have a couple near solids with these blenders, and that's kind of a fun pattern to use. Oh, and look at the geometrics. And we have some pretty leaves in here, more stripes. Okay, so there's a lot here that I can use. What I'm going to do first is line these up on my board and cut them into precuts. And you may have seen that in another video. I've been busy quilting and making videos, and I want to share it all with you. So let me go ahead and I'll get this cut up and show you what that'll look like. Well, I have a lot going on here as I'm sorting through my fabrics. I have my stack of layer cakes that I had already pre-cut. And what I've done is I've separated about half of them. I pulled out the duplicates. And so this is a partial layer cake. I think there's maybe 30-ish. And then these are the duplicates I'm setting aside for another project. Now, of these 12 that I just received, I used a lot more than I initially thought. I'm going to go with 10 of them and just take these two different colors out. They really don't work with all the rest of these, but I do have some other options for these. So let me go ahead and set that over here. So these are the 10 that I'm going to use in this particular layer cake quilt. And I'm going to cut them down. And I'm just lining it up here because I want to cut them into precuts. So what I'm going to do is line my edge up on this corner and this corner. So I put everything right where I want it to be here. And then I make sure any loose edges are all at least at that line and here at least at that line. So I find it easier to cut multiples at a time. And that way I can just run it through quicker. And then I can pull what I need and sort it, etc., and not continually cut. So this is going to be about 1/4 of an inch, and I'm using my my big blade since I'm cutting through 10. And this is the 60 millimeter. These narrow strips are what I use when I do my rope wrapping, and we'll take a look at that another time. With my edge trimmed, I'm going to go ahead and start cutting my precuts, and the first is going to be 10 inches. So I have about 1/4 of an inch down here, because as I lay these, not everything is perfectly straight. Everything's, cut at different times, and some of the edges aren't quite square, so I just trim as I go. So I have here, and then 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Right there. Let's turn it around the right way so I can read my numbers. And so 2 and 2, right? 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. All right. So I'm going to just cut straight across here. And actually, I'm going to trim that 1/4 inch off before I cross cut because I want to have those narrow strips in long pieces. So when I go to do my rope wrapping, I have plenty to work with. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. I know I'm kind of neurotic about the counting because I've made enough mistakes over time. So it's all about counting twice and cutting once. 2, 4, 6, 8, 10. I think I'm there, right? So this is 6 plus 4. We got it. And get that lined up. So I have these narrow pieces, and this is something that I can use. Oh, did I forget to cut? No, I did. Oh my gosh, I thought I forgot to cut that strip, but I already took it off. And so these are just extra strips on the edge. And these can actually be sewn together. There's some fun things. So I have a bunch of these that I'm saving. And then I'm going to come up with whatever I come up with. So we'll check that out. Now, one set of these will go with today's quilt. The other set, these will go with the ones that I pulled and set aside. So the idea being that as I continuously cut precuts for various projects and get new fabrics and cut them, then I'm continuously adding to my other precuts that I already have. So over time, you do those a few times and you get a great collection of a lot of different fabrics. And I like to mix the prints and the blenders and the solids, and it just really works well for me. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So this is going to be my charm square stack. And then I'm going to go ahead and cross cut these. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Because I already have a bunch of these cut. I have 4 different bundles of the charm squares going with the same various assorted colors and fabrics that I'm using. So I'm going to go ahead and cut another 4. And then each of those bundles will have the same series of colors. So if I decide to, make a larger quilt and use a number of different charm squares, then I'm going to have enough to do whatever I want to do. 1, 2, 3, 4. There's 5 right there. Okay. And again, we'll set these aside. Now, at this point, sometimes I'll go ahead and I'll cut this, because the fat quarter shop generally will give you a 19-inch fat quarter. I have usually at least 3.5 to 4 inches extra. When it's straight 18 inches, I'll cut this at a 2.5. But because, like right here, most of these are more than 3.5 and close to 4 inches, if I come up with something that I want to use and have it be a little bit wider, then I have that option. So I'm just going to leave these as they are until the time comes that I, decide what exactly I'm going to do with them. And I'll just set all this here. And now I'm going to work with these. Okay, I have my fabric sorted out, and what I've done is I have a total of 42 pieces. And so it's equal to a layer cake, whether you make your own or you use yardage. Buy a pre-pack, that's where we start. And what I did is divided it into 8 different piles. Now, I have 40 pieces, will give me 5 layer cakes per 8 piles for each of them. But I had 2 extras, so I just added those 2 extras onto a different pile. So it's nothing, difficult, but just you want to even out your colors. You want to put some reds and greens and just kind of create some some interest and balance through there. So I am going to layer my colors, my fabrics, and put them in some kind of an order of sorts. Let's see. I kind of like to alternate lights and darks. So I'll put a dark, and then this gold one is more of a light. And actually that red will go good here. Now, remember, I cut these all at different times, and I don't laser cut, obviously. So some of my blocks are not going to be exactly the same as the others, but that's okay. We're going to get them close, and we'll get everything to lay out nice and get them as even as we can. And then we're going to cut. Now, ordinarily, this kind of a pattern that I'm showing you is done with just 2 fabrics. I'm doing 5. I'm using 5 because I want 5 colors in each block. There we go. And so generally, you would use 2 colors, and then you would swap the middle out in each, and you'd have a surrounding block that would be all the same color. Well, that's not what I want to do. So I am going to cut, first off, a 5-inch. Now, this is the Missouri Star Quilt Company pack of, rulers. And I like it because they're made for precuts. And I use these because they're 5, 10, and 15, plus there's the little 2.5. And that's just really handy if you use precuts, because then you have the consistency of those measurements, and it just makes it, pretty darn easy. Okay, 5 inches. Now I'm going to bump it over to 2.5 and make sure I'm in the right place, right there. All right, so I have 1 2.5, a second 2.5. Now I'm going to cut this at 5 inches. Let's make sure we've got this all done. Okay, so again at 5, and because this is a 5-inch ruler, it just makes it really quick. And I do have these down in the links below if you're interested in any of the tools that I use. So let's do this. All right, now, if you have directional fabrics, you want to come back and turn this the direction that you started, so everything will sort of go in the same direction. You can obviously turn it as you go, and that works out fine. But what we're going to do is lay it out this way. And this is how it's going to be sewn together. So you've seen in the past where all you do is you take this one out, you sew those 4 around it, that's one block, and then the second block is the reverse. What I'm going to do instead is take, one block there and put it to the bottom, take 2 blocks and put it to the bottom, take 3 blocks, put it to the bottom, and then take 4. Now, what's nice about this is we get all these colors in one block. So when I sew it together, they're going to really have a lot going on in each block. And that's what I want, because then we're going to put another block here. I don't want the seams to match, so we're going to turn it 90 degrees. So this will look like a bunch of single blocks that are surrounded, that are framed by multiple colors, but then we're going to get double rows of these frames. And that's the part that I mentioned reminds me of the potato chip block. I love how that works when you just layer out those colors, and I think this is going to be wonderful. So now I'm just going to go through and cut my other sets. I will sew one set at a time simply because I don't want to get all mixed up. Now, nothing says that I can't go through and cut each of these bundles and then just stack them on and let it happen, because that actually would be kind of fun too. And I just might try doing that. And that's really a good idea. So that's where I'm heading. I am going to cut all these, stack them on top of this. The beauty of that is I don't have to worry about switching between, sewing this and then sewing this. And what I can do is I can sew all these at once, and I can come back and sew all these next, and then turn it and then sew all these in place. Perfect. I'm glad you talked me into that. I think it's going to be a wonderful option. So let me go ahead and get started sewing. The first thing I'm going to do is put these two together. I'll press it to, it doesn't matter, in or out, whatever works for you, because at this point, nothing's really going to be nesting as far as the seams. And then we'll do the second round, do the same thing. The only thing that I would do is whatever you press it in the same direction, so that when you put this in, you can just sew it straight. So I would press them all in this direction. So when I lay this on, all those seams in the back are going to go that direction. Now, okay, there we are. I'm going to go ahead and get started. I have some sewing to do. Now, I want to share with you what I'm calling my DIY findings. Do it yourself and you find out what the mistakes are. Or let's not put it that way. We don't make mistakes. We find challenges that we overcome, right? Challenges that we overcome. We need to write that down somewhere because that's a good one. Okay, so you see my block and you see how it's going to go together. And then I have 2 10-inch strips on either side, because this is what it's going to look like. But my strip ends up at 9 inches. And so after I sewed it, I had to come in and cut all these little pieces off, and that's so time consuming. So what we're going to do, and this is in addition to the step that I showed you, because I hadn't made this quilt yet. This was my first time. I love sharing first time quilts with you, because then we find out all the good ways to do it and what goes easier, what goes faster, and what not to do. So if I pre-cut this then at 9 inches, I have all these wonderful little strips like this that I can do something fun with. I haven't quite decided yet, but I'm thinking small, like little mug rugs or something like that, with some fun pieces. And so now, with this all set to go, I can assemble my blocks and not be worried about having those little pieces overhang. So now that you know the changes to make when you're making your block, I'm going to show you how these turn out. Oh my goodness, they're beautiful. Look at these fantastic scrappy squares. They look wonderful. I love the framed look about them. I love all the colors together. This is going to be a gorgeous quilt. Now I've got 42 pieces to put together. That's my next task. So let me get started and I'll show you what that'll look like. And you can see I've chain pieced this, so it's 6 across and 7 long, and these finish at 8.5 inches. So that's a pretty good size quilt, but I love all these fabrics. And so this is chain piece, but I wanted to put some together so you can see what it looks like when it's pieced. I'm just kind of stretch this out this way and that. And look at those wonderful prints. Oh my goodness. Aren't they fantastic? Oh, all right. So now I just need to put those last 2 rows together, and I can do a picture of the whole thing and show you. But look at this. All these seams, nothing had to match. The corners, and that's it. But all these, because they're offset, not offset, but they're alternating in the direction that they're going. Oh, such fun. All right, let me finish this up and I'll get a picture and show you what it looks like finished. What a fun quilt this is. She surely is a beauty. All those fabrics, those colors, those prints. I love it. I love the scrappy look of this. And now with my 3rd quilt finished, oh my goodness, these are just such fun, and they're just so stunning with all those colors, and they're bright, but yet there's subdued colors, there's darks, there's near solids. Everything we threw at this has worked out really, really well. So I hope you enjoyed this, and I hope you're going to get ready to make your own. Thanks so much for being here and hanging in to the end. Have yourself a fantastic rest of the day. Go get some quilting done. I can't wait to get together again. It's always such a pleasure to be here with you. Thanks, and I'll be back with more soon.